Hello, this is Ruby Romana. Thanks for having a reading with me. How can I help you? Hello, I'm Ruby Romana and welcome to this timeless Oracle cards reading. Now, this reading is going to pertain to Brexit, and the question is going to be how to cope with Brexit. So, because at the moment it seems as though the UK is rather unstable politically, and that's just an understatement, really. So we've got our three cards. Now, this isn't really pick a card, because really the card chooses you, depending on whether you are a Remainer or whether you're uncertain and you're not really on either side of the argument, or argument or sentiment, let's just say. Maybe argument really isn't the best word for me to have used. We need to do less arguing, don't we, when it comes to our Brexit? But anyway, or you might be on the Brexiter camp, let's just say. Right, so we've got card. So number one is going to be Remain, but this isn't particularly in any order of preference. The second card is Unsure. The third card is Brexit, and that's what these coins pertain to. It's just my little system of knowing which card is which, because everything's a little bit upside down with this webcam. So, right, okay. So, but let's also remember that Brexit or Remain, we're all the same. That's something important that I think that we've got to not lose sight of, really. Okay, so I was going to light these candles, but I've decided not to. So I don't think I'm going to have the space for them. So let's go for card number one. Okay, right, so let's turn over card number one. And as you can see, it's a lovely card. And this card is Liberation. Freedom. Wow, it's interesting, isn't it, that the Liberation is actually under the Remain. It has come up for Remain and for a message for Remainers. Because really I'd have thought it would have perhaps put in an appearance for Brexit. So let's try to make something of this anyway. So, liberation, so liberty. So liberty, freedom. So if you're a Remainer, perhaps you think that we should that the UK should stay in the EU due to, for instance, freedom of movement. That's kind of liberty, isn't it? When it comes to the EU, we don't really have borders within the EU, and at the moment, because the UK is still within the European Union, we don't have to have borders at the moment. So also, though, we could also say that this is liberty of thought. So no matter, so say you're a Remainer and your best friend or your husband or wife, girlfriend or boyfriend, mother or father, brother or sisters, etc., you're a fervent Remainer and you're not going to budge. And why should you? Because you are more than welcome to your own point of view. But perhaps this card's about, having the freedom of thought. So you're allowed to be free to feel the way that you feel about the UK, Brexit, and the EU. And because you feel that, as a Remainer, that the UK should stay in the EU, that's your thought that you're welcome to hold and you're free to hold. And you don't have to feel like you have to justify that, let's just say, to anyone else that might feel differently to you. Also, I'm getting kind of the thought of calmness, because it seems like people are becoming so irate over this whole Brexit kind of political crisis that the UK is having, that people are becoming very, very uncalm. Everything's very stormy at the moment, isn't it? And tempers are very frayed, and we need to remember to stay calm. So I think Remainers need to definitely remember that they have the freedom to stay calm. You can have liberty, the liberty of calmness. So that has come to my mind as well. Okay, liberation. What else is there that's coming through to me? Okay, another Another thought that's come to my mind is liberation. The most interchangeable word with liberation for me is freedom. So I'm going to keep saying liberation or freedom. So freedom to be fair. So you are free to be fair. You're free to kind of uphold fairness. So what I would say for that is when I say about being fair, perhaps it's about accepting that sometimes we don't always get what we want, do we? Do you know what I mean? Because obviously so many people think that, because the referendum was so equally divided, wasn't it? There wasn't much between Brexit and Remain. So, but you do have the freedom, to be honest, to be fair and to say, well, even though it was very tight, the results were very tight, everything was very narrow. The fact of the matter is that Brexit did slightly edge, didn't it? It had the edge, um, in the end, the UK as as an entity, as a country of three, did actually vote to leave the EU. But you do have the liberty and the freedom to be fair and to kind of accept perhaps that Brexit is going to happen. I'm not saying it's imminent. I'm not saying it's going to happen right now, but it's bound to happen at some point. And perhaps, it's just you have that liberty, don't you? You can kind of have liberation of fairness where you accept the fact that we don't always get what we want when we vote. So yes. Also, the only other word that's come to me, actually, I think I've just said it, is acceptance. So just accepting the fact that, the vote didn't perhaps go your way, but nevertheless, accepting other people's points of view, but also just accepting the fact that, our relationship with the EU is going to change. Well, it already has changed, hasn't it? So that's come up as well. So I hope that has actually helped you when it comes to how to cope um, uh, with Brexit. Also, another way to cope is liberty, get away from it all as well. So that's it. I mean, the card you can clearly see here, can't you? You can clearly see that you've got somebody riding out of that prison. So, and that prison might be the prison of our own minds that we've created over Brexit, to be honest. But you do have the freedom to kind of ride away from it. So, perhaps you don't want to go on the news. Perhaps you don't, you don't want to hear about Brexit. Perhaps you want to switch the TV off. Perhaps you just, you even want to switch the radio off. You just want to completely switch off and just get out in nature, just as the rider is. You don't have to go and you don't have to go and borrow a horse. But you could drive off in your car, or you could go for a walk somewhere, couldn't you? Just something like that, just so you recuperate, and so you're getting away from this whole political crisis that's happening in the UK at the moment. So I hope that's given you a little bit of food for thought, and I hope it's given you a little mini coping strategy. Okay, so let's go on to the second card now. And the second card is obviously unsure. So let's just move this candle off camera. Let's turn the card. Ooh, very peculiar. Peculiar, peculiar. Right, we've got the warrior for unsure. The universe really is having a laugh with me today, I can tell you. Right, okay. Hold up the card. So I'm going to let you look at this beautiful card, and it gives me a little bit of time to pause to think, well, what's going on here? Because you wouldn't really automatically assume that if you're unsure, if you if you don't really have much of a passion for Brexit, well, you might not particularly care. You might just want the whole process to be over and done, and to get everything done and dusted, so to speak. So it's interesting, isn't it? We've got the warrior. Oh gosh. So perhaps because you're not really that passionate either way about whether to remain or whether to Brexit, perhaps you kind of feel that you're almost still having to do battle. Maybe it's almost as though as somebody that's uncertain, and that you kind of feel like you're getting drawn into a battle and you don't really want to be drawn into it. So really, perhaps the warrior card for you can be, let's kind of maybe turn it on its head a little bit, and perhaps it could pertain to defending your right to be neutral. So that's kind of one thought that comes up for the warrior when it comes to the context of this timeless oracle card reading. Um, Also, another thought that's come to me when it comes to the warrior is that perhaps you have to kind of guard against negativity, because where there's so much negativity going on with this whole Brexit thing at the moment in the United Kingdom, that it's so easy to get drawn into it, even if you don't want to, even if you don't really feel strongly on whether or not we leave or whether we stay in the EU. So perhaps you just kind of feel like you're getting drawn into something that you don't want to get drawn into. So maybe you can kind of just do the whole thing, where you kind of say no, kind of things, that you're not gonna kind of that you're not gonna get drawn into this whole debate kind of thing. Let me so the whole Remain and Brexit thing, you don't want to know about it, and you just want to get on with things, and you're going to kind of say no, talk to the hand kind of thing. Do you know what I mean? That you're just not willing to get drawn into it. You're going to actually guard against the battle. So that's the only things that are really coming up for this card that I can think of. But there's nothing wrong when it comes to feeling that you don't really care which way, you don't really mind about the result of Brexit, let's just say. There's nothing wrong about being neutral. In fact, it can be a good thing to be neutral, actually. It can help you stay in balance. So perhaps the warrior is actually about being in balance, staying in balance. Also, that sometimes we don't like knives. Knives really aren't bad. We won't go into that whole thing of knives in the UK at the moment either. But the thing is, another thought that came to me when it comes to the warrior is the sword. We've got his sword, so perhaps that can also pertain to cutting through all of the crap. Do you know what I mean? So just cut through all of that yucky, Brexity and Remainy kind of stuff, where they're all, both each side is kind of mudslinging. So maybe you just want to kind of slice through it all, and you don't want that. So that's another thought that came to me, that you don't want that, and you're not going to put up with it, and you're not going to let it kind of filter into your world. So that's another thing that's come up as well. So how to cope. So if you're the warrior, then I would say the best way to cope is to literally, to kind of have that imaginary sword where you could feel like you can kind of where you can smite the dragon, that kind of thing, where you can slay the dragon, and you can just cut through all of that nasty, yucky stuff, like I said, with your imaginary sword, can't you? So that's the best way for you to cope, that you're ready and willing to defend your own neutrality. So, but in the nicest way possible. Okay, so now we've got, what have we got here? Ooh, we've got the wheel. Interesting. Right, so the wheel. Okay, so what comes to me with the wheel, mills have wheels, so it could pertain to productivity. The wheel of karma, things keep turning. So if you're a Brexiteer, if you voted to leave the EU, then perhaps the universe is telling you that you've just got to keep going and keep kind of believing that the UK will actually enable us to leave the European Union, and it will actually fulfill the promise that it made, that the government made to the people at the time when we had the whole Brexit vote. So that's you know, one perception I have for this card when it comes to Brexit. How to cope. Right, so okay, so how to cope, I would also say that I think that the wheel can sometimes be about things going round and round when things keep turning. Okay, so it's going to feel like perhaps that things are just going to just keep going round and round in this crazy, bizarre kind of way at the moment. But eventually things are going to get better. So how to cope with it? The wheel, again, it could be to do with going off somewhere, a journey. Um, Also, the wheel could sometimes be to do with standing alone. We've got a wheel, it's on its own. Perhaps this also pertains to the fact that the United Kingdom can stand alone, and so you don't have to start to worry about will the United Kingdom be able to make it on its own as a separate political entity without the EU. But it seems as though the wheel suggests that we can stand alone as a country. We've got movement. Remember that a wheel pertains to movement, like I said, journeying. So maybe again, one of the best coping strategies would be for you to actually, if you're a Brexiteer, would be to, you know, go out somewhere, get away from everything, switch off. Because I think all of us are becoming so absorbed by this whole Brexit thing that it's almost as though the United Kingdom's bordering on some kind of political insanity. So, you know, so going round and round, you mustn't worry too much that everything's going round and round. Karma as well. That's another word that's come to me when it comes to this card and how to cope. So another way to cope is to kind of see this whole Brexit thing as a karmic episode when it comes to the United Kingdom. You know, it's almost like order out of chaos, chaos out of order, that kind of thing. So, you know, where there is order, there sometimes can become it can become chaotic, which it now is, because really it's almost as though the whole referendum and the chance to be able to vote, that was kind of very orderly, but out of that orderliness we've now got a chaotic crisis going on at the moment. So, but the wheel of karma, so things what goes around comes around. So although it might seem like we're never going to leave the EU, that eventually it will come back round where we do, and where this whole situation actually resolves itself, or the politicians that we trust to resolve the matter will resolve the matter. So we've got that as well. So like I said, so for coping strategies, it is actually interesting. If you're a Remainer, remember that you need to get out and about and just switch off from from the whole Brexit thing. But remember that you also have the freedom to accept the results, and you know, but you also have freedom of thought, even if you might not have freedom of movement in the EU for much longer. If you're basically unsure, remember to you know, to defend your neutrality, that you're allowed to be neutral. It's something that you can actually passionately defend if you choose to, but you're allowed to not actually feel like you have to choose sides. You can be neutral, and so that sword can cut through both of those sides. So you've got a path to walk down the middle. Without any kind of apprehension or without any kind of hassle. So there you go. And the one word that I really am going to pick out for this is just the wheel of karma. What goes around comes around. What breaks up comes together. What comes together breaks up. And it's just a kind of, maybe it's a natural political and social ebb and flow. So, and to cope with Brexit, if you're a Brexiteer and you're feeling quite overwhelmed with everything again, the advice actually remains the same, excuse the pun, which is you know, get out and about and just kind of switch off from the whole Brexit thing. So hopefully that's given you a few coping mechanisms when it comes to this whole Brexit hoo-ha. Now, thank you very, very much for watching this video. Please like this video, Please comment on this video, please subscribe, and to find out a little bit more about me and the readings that I offer, you can go to rubyromana.com. But thank you very, very much for watching this video, and positive vibes from me to you. Bye for now.